Roll call.
Parker?
Here.
Miscelinich?
Here.
Olson?
Here.
Zittergruen?
Here.
Jizzle? Whittle?
Here.
Neal?
Okay, you see a little bit different as far as the lineup is concerned. Is there anybody who wishes to make a comment to the council? Please come up, state your name and your address.
My name is Julie Olson, 1006 Woodside Court, Decorah.
Can you turn this just a little closer to you? There, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Do you need me to repeat that, or is that good?
Pardon?
Julie Olson, 1006 Woodside Court.
Thank you.
Okay. In reference to item number 7 on tonight's agenda, I want to strongly encourage the City Council to include Alliance feasibility study in your MEU educational materials provided by the City of Decorah. This study was done by Concentric Energy Advisors, a reputable and well-respected firm that does these types of studies all over the country. I would also encourage each of you to take a good, hard look at the results of that study. In my mind, there are 2 big takeaways. First, there have been a number of other cities around the country, both larger and smaller than Decorah, that have applied and pled their case in front of their state utility boards and commissions. And in the end, a vast majority of them have just given up because the process is just too expensive. Second, when you factor in the cost of borrowing millions of dollars to buy out Alliance's current infrastructure here in Decorah, the cost of paying off that debt over many years is so astronomical that the Decorah's case will not pass the Iowa Utilities Board's test of being able to provide more economical electrical energy for Decorah. The dollars and cents numbers in the report speak volumes. As yet, I've not seen any cost estimates provided by MEU advocates. And when I've asked, I've repeatedly been told they don't know and can only find out if we have a yes vote. I beg to disagree. Take a look at Concentric study. As a city taxpayer, I'm not willing to vote yes to provide any group an undetermined amount of money to further their special interest agenda. I urge you to get this Concentric information out to all Decorah voters and taxpayers so they can make a well-informed decision not to throw thousands of hard-earned dollars down a rabbit hole when we have so many other better places to spend it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing seen none, at this point, we will go through with city manager, department head, and council reports, and I'll start with you, Travis.
One thing I want to point out, we're receiving some questions on snow emergencies and how those are determined. So our code allows for an auto trigger of snow emergency whenever there's 2 inches of snow or more and that's fallen. But we like to also give residents a heads up that we are going to be in a snow emergency so that everyone can plan accordingly, because our snow emergency here in Decorah is alternating side parking. So it's not everybody off the street. It's you got to pick either the odd side of the street on odd calendar days or the even side on even days. That's also why when Decorah does a snow emergency, it often spans 2 days. You know, even if the snowfall is going to end maybe around noon on a given day, if all the cars parked on the odd side of the street that day and we don't make them move the next day, we can't come back and clean up that odd side of the street. So that's why it often spans 2 days. Just wanted to point that out. If anybody has any other questions, please feel free to reach out. The only other thing I'll add, legislative session's well underway, number of bills that we're keeping an eye on, and if there's anything in particular that you have questions about, please let me know. But I would encourage all the council members to sign up for the Iowa League of Cities legislative update that comes out weekly, and I'm served on that policy committee, and we meet on Fridays. So if there's something that you want to voice your thoughts on, please let me know.
Thank you.
Just a quick question on the snow emergencies.
Mhm.
Do you put that on the TV stations also?
I don't don't think so. Okay, I would say I don't think so.
Okay, would that be something for people that don't get the emails and,
I believe the school controls that, right, Shepard? We send it to them, or?
No, that's actually to the library department.
Okay,
So, problem is that, I think we've done it in the past, like it's during your normal, but if it's like a night or a weekend.
mm-hmm.
well, I'm thinking like Channel 7, Channel 9,
Oh, you're talking local affiliates?
local new,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, okay. So,
Because this last one, I did see a lot of communities that put out snow emergencies, but we weren't on there.
mhm. Yeah,
And especially on weekends.
yeah.
Be
In
helpful.
my tenure, we haven't done that. I don't know that I don't think that was the practice prior to.
Right.
Certainly something that we could.
Well, it's fairly
uh,
new with the alternate side parking that we
yeah.
just adopted a couple years, so, I mean, something that we maybe should look into.
mhm.
I would
Yeah.
agree with that, too.
Yep, we can do that. I do want to say that, at least my personal observations and in talking with the street crews and police officers, the community did a really good job of complying with that, this last snowfall. So, thank you, everyone. I know the staff really appreciates that. It does make it so much easier, more efficient for them to do their jobs, as well as it ends up in a way cleaner street when we're all done.
Okay. Carrie?
I just wanted to remind the council that we're in the middle of the software changing over for the utility billing from Tyler to Civic. We are in training all this week. We do have Lois Kennan that's coming in to cover the office. So we've encountered a few glitches, but those will get worked through. So if anybody contacts you regarding the bill or anything, just have them please call down to the office and we can go through it with them.
Okay, thank you. Brent?
I do not have anything particular to report.
Christopher?
Nothing.
Kirsten?
Nothing as well.
Steve Zittergren?
3 things. Very quick ones, though. Thanks to the Historic Commission. I don't know if they're here tonight, but they did just a terrific review of one of the site plans that we're considering, and just really appreciate the work that they do. Thank you. And I also want to thank the owners of the Rowley building for their investment in our C3 in our downtown. It's a beautiful proposal they've presented to us tonight, and it'll be a remarkable investment in our community. And huge thanks to our street department and also public safety for all their hard work over the past few days and week dealing with the snow.
Okay, thank you. Randy?
Nothing this evening, Mayor.
Cody?
Also nothing tonight.
Okay, sounds good. The annual report of Decorah Historic Preservation Commission. You can come up to the podium and just state your name and address and welcome.
My name is Haley. Oop. I'm not used to being too tall for the microphone. Hi, my name is Haley Jackson. I'm at 910 Ridgewood Drive here in Decorah, and I'm here this evening as the Vice Chair of the Decorah Historic Preservation Commission. Thank you for giving me just a few minutes of your time tonight to review our annual report. The Decorah Historic Preservation Commission has had a very good and busy year. Our routine work continues. The Commission provided 24 recommendations for Planning and Zoning Committee this year, both on proposed signs and building alterations in the C3 district. These recommendations have been a thoughtful and productive way for us to engage with both building owners, planning and zoning, and the City Council, something which we very greatly value. The Commission continues to engage on an informal basis with property owners, particularly in the C3 district, who are interested looking to do historically appropriate renovations or rehabilitations on their buildings. This advisory work is part of the reason that as a commission, we were exceptionally delighted at the City of Decorah's announcement on the Downtown Economic Investment Grant Program last November. For many property owners, the cost can be a very real barrier to doing historically appropriate rehabilitation planning. So these grants can and will be valuable opportunities for the downtown building owners to engage with historic preservation. We were pleased that the DHPC Chair, Mark Mugley, was invited to review the first round of applications. But we do hope that these awards will be reserved for projects that will raise the level of the downtown historic preservation. On May 22nd, we awarded our annual Historic Preservation Award to Lois, Dean, and Chandra Humpel for all of their renovations in town, including houses done by Charles Altvillish, our local Decorah architect. We submitted 3 site inventories to SHPO, the State Historical Preservation Office, and we've attended quite a few webinars as well, which have been really useful for developing and growing as a commission. Of note, we have, I know Mark went with Travis to the local planning and zoning for city officials, which was very useful, and Kathy Buzza went to one on ADUs, accessory dwelling units, last December. In addition to our routine projects, we've supported a lot of special projects, including Decorah's 175th anniversary this past June. We took the initiative to approach the Chamber of Commerce and say, hey, this is a big anniversary. Let's do something about it. So 3 of our commissioners were on part of the planning process. We also worked with Parks and Recreation and the city engineer on developing new signage for the Steyer Bridge. This bridge is on the National Register of Historic Places. We were able to work with Parks and Rec, the city engineer, and a Steyer family descendant to create new signage to tell the story of Michael Steyer and his contributions to the Decorah area. We look forward to holding a celebratory dedication in this coming year, and I don't think it's too soon to say that you all will be cordially invited to join us once we get that time and place set. The commission continues to engage in outreach through both presentations and articles. During the anniversary celebrations, Mark Mugley and Judy Vanderlinden gave a very popular presentation called What's Still Here? Surviving Decorah Properties from 1849 to 1870. This was then given an encore performance for the Decorah Genealogy Association that October. And it also formed the basis for an article in the Decorah Leader, which was an anniversary retrospective on Decorah, and that came out in August. Adrienne Coffin, another commissioner, did some lovely poster board displays for this event as well, with her extensive collection of Decorah memorabilia. And then Judy also took the lead in writing a guide to how to research local buildings for those of us in Winneshiek County who are interested in doing that kind of research. This was originally written for DGA's newsletter, but it is now publicly available on our website, and we hope this will be a useful tool for all property owners who might be interested. As a professional archivist, I can say learning how to dig through records is a skill, and Judy is a master of it, so we're hoping this will be a useful tool for everyone. And then finally, I chaired a session at the Midwest Archives Conference this past spring where I presented on our work on the Charles Altvillish project with our tours and brochures and all of that. And I got several of my colleagues were very impressed, and I heard a lot of other archivists say this is exactly the format we want for tours in our town. So well done, Decorah. We are reaching other places. We look forward to another year of working with the city and our community. Thank you for your interest in and your support of our work.
I want to say thank you to the group for doing the report. It was extremely extensive. It showcased all the things that you've been working on, and I really appreciate it. You guys work very hard at it, and I can see Mark's online. I printed out the form and got it signed, and Haley has it.
You can, no anxiety, Mark, we're good.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I just want to point out the fact that the Allfish guide that you guys put out was phenomenal. I happened to grow up about a half a block from Mr. Allfish when I was growing up in Decorah here. And the fact you guys have found all these buildings that he designed and put them on this brochure that you can follow around the city and stuff like that. And I went to one of the open houses they had, and it was really well done. So I appreciate the work you guys are doing. It's really outstanding. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Consent agenda.
Item A, minutes of the February 3rd, 2025 meeting. B, claims. C, Cops and Rodders special event application, May 17, 2025. D, resolution setting public hearing for the Decorah 2025 Hively Street Improvements Project. E, C3 design site plan for 421 West Water Street. F, integrated roadside vegetation management application. And just as a side note, staff has a few minor edits we'd like to make to the application, but nothing would change this substantial scope of the project if council is okay with that approval.
Just a quick question on that, probably Mark. Where would this be used in the city?
So,
It seems like a county road type thing, so just for an explanation, please.
yeah.
Yes,
We're
please.
grabbing the mic for,
All right. You hear me okay?
Yes.
One example would be out at Trout Run Park. That would be an area that we could turn turf into native grass, kind of turn it over into the roadside program. So it would be select areas. It wouldn't be throughout the city, but that would be one example of that area, as well as along Old Stage, kind of where the ball field, pickleball court
Okay.
area.
The ditch area there? Okay. All right, I was just curious when I saw this come up. So, thank you.
And
I just wanted,
go ahead. I was just going to say,
okay.
am I right that that the sort of the scope of this thing kind of starts at the edge? Like you all talked about arterial roads first. I imagine that would be things like Locust or I don't know, maybe Valley View. Am I understanding that right? That
Yeah, it really fits better on those arterial roads and on the outskirts, and not so much in the center of the city. But we could apply the principles to different areas, like at the fronts of parks and those types of things. So there's other applications, especially in the park areas.
I just wanted to thank staff for all the work they did to try to work this out with cops and rodders. I know we had problems with it
Yes.
last year, and it, coincided with a lot of dates for graduations and things like that. So thanks, staff and everybody involved with these projects. I know May is a busy month for everybody, but we seem to be able to have gotten it worked out so that everybody's got their weekend and stuff like that. So thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
I agree with that too. I like that event, and I'm glad that worked out.
I'd move
But
for
I
the-
think we have, okay.
Just quickly, I think back to Steve and Randy's questions there, the overall goal is to reduce the amount of mowing that is occurring in the city, and so that's part of the program is to plant native grasses that don't require a lawnmower going over the top of them, but still maintain the brush to keep it keep areas along the roads and along the river and other places manageable.
Okay.
I also think that, I appreciate the talented staff that you've got working with you, Mark, and to be able to have this as an opportunity for the city.
I would move for approval of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion made by Chisel, seconded by Ms. Olenich. Any other further discussion? Roll call?
Chisel,
Aye.
Misselinich,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Zittergruen,
Aye.
Whittle.
Motion carried. Consider Alliant Energy feasibility link as voter education information. We had two council people that put this on the agenda. I'd like to hear from both of them. Christopher, you want to go first?
Yeah, I definitely can start out. I know, this may not be the most popular opinion in town, but I truly do believe that we'd be doing a disservice not by just not having this conversation on the agenda this evening. I just want to make it clear before we get too much in the subject matter, I'm neither pro either group. My goal is to simply ensure that we're providing diverse and overall balanced information that truly benefits those who reside here in Decorah. Basis was that I had a handful of individuals reach out once this item was published by Alliant, and I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing is just having the dialogue and overall dialogue on the issue regardless of one's viewpoint on this upcoming ballot issue. I also would like to recognize too that we have taken the time to maintain an unbiased perspective in the voter education materials that have been provided thus far. However, I know that public perception usually outweighs that. And I know a lot of public perception, especially in conversations that I've had with people, at times have the city in being a pro stance rather than that unbiased stance. That's another reason I brought it forth. And then finally, as elected officials, it's our responsibility to engage in these conversations, regardless if they're easy. So at the end of the day, that's why I brought this forth, just to have that conversation.
Thank you. Randy?
Well, Christopher said it pretty well. I mean, yeah, both sides should have their day, and some of the emails keep saying that, this hasn't been vetted for truth and that. Well, the ethics board isn't vetting for truth, they're vetting for violations of whether we're advocating one side or the other. So that's not their job, and this has come back to us as being okay to put out there. So I think it'd be a total disservice if we didn't show both sides of the argument to our public.
You did hear back from the ethics board, Travis?
I did. This afternoon, I received an email. I forwarded this, the feasibility study to the ethics board for review of Iowa Code Chapter 68A. Heard back this afternoon that it does not run afoul of that code section.
Okay. I have more just a logistical question. As far as having something on the website that is from a for-profit business versus, is that, I mean, if you're looking at the grand scheme of things, have we done something like that before? Is there any type of guidelines as far as if it's just city information?
So we get similar requests for for-profit and non-for-profit entities as well, weekly. Carrie actually got another one today that says, hey, here's a link. I'd love you to throw this on your website. Sometimes I know one I get to my email often is our resource pages for senior citizens. That, hey, this be a great link to throw on your website for senior citizens to direct them to our site for them to have this information. The reason they do that is the .gov of our website gives their website more legitimacy and pushes them up on the Google. When you Google something, you get a better strike when somebody tries to search that. So our policy is we do not have external links or references short of our affiliate partners, I'd call them. Chamber of Commerce, Decorah Jobs, partners like that.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I want to thank Christopher and Randy for putting this on the agenda, and I agree with Christopher that the public deserves, these discussions when, that's why we're elected and sit in these chairs when there's decisions to be made. I think the public deserves to hear what we think about these things. I think, though, that the concerns that I've heard, and I appreciate all of those who've expressed them both in person and in writing, that the city ought to publish Alliance feasibility study. I think that those concerns are based on something that I don't necessarily agree with, which is that what the city's doing with its educational materials is taking a pro-Alliance stance. I'm sorry, a pro-MEU stance, excuse me. I don't see that. I think that the educational materials, as I read them, they're 2 pages. You can all read them too. I think many of you have. They very straightforwardly spell out the stakes of a vote, what happens if the vote passes, what happens if a vote doesn't pass. It's factual content. On the other hand, if we were to link to a strongly in favor of, a yes vote or, the feasibility study from Alliant, we would be doing a different kind of thing with a city resource, which is, sort of directing people to a non sort of fact-based stance. Alliant has a strong case to make. They have some good points to make, and I appreciate that, and I think that they ought to make them. In fact, I think that that's one of the things that makes for a good society. But I don't think the city is the correct organization to host an argument strongly for or strongly against this referendum, when our goal as a council, as far as I understand it all along, has been to provide our voters with as much accurate and unbiased information as we can. And I want to point my fellow council members to Alliance feasibility study, their updated one. The page after the cover page is a disclaimer, and the in the disclaimer it says that that Concentric did not independently validate this information. It doesn't provide an opinion as to its accuracy. That's not to say it's accurate or not. It is up to the public to consider the arguments for and against and make that determination for themselves as they go to the polls. But if that's in the very disclaimer, if that's one of the first things in the feasibility study, then it's very clearly a very different thing than what the city is attempting to do with its educational materials. And therefore, I don't think that we should put them together on the city website. I think that would confuse voters. And so I prefer that Alliant continues to make their strong case, that Decorah Power continues to make their strong case, and that the city reserves itself to the role of presenting information that we can say reflects our best understanding of what is true and accurate. And so I'm going to vote no.
I too feel like Steve. I'm glad that Randy and Christopher brought this up. I think it's good that we have this discussion and open public hearing like this so that people can hear both sides of it. As Christopher mentioned, I don't come at this with a bias one way or the other. I don't particularly have a horse in this race. I can see the advantages of having an MEU that Decorah operates. We can keep our money local. We're not paying stockholders. We're keeping that money for things we need to do in our city. But I can also see a lot of disadvantages to going down that road of trying to pursue an MEU. It could get very expensive, and it's something we'd put a burden on the taxpayers to try to get to that point. So I can see both sides of this issue. As far as putting this on our website, when the mayor first asked for an educational piece to be put on there, all she wanted was to answer the basic questions that people had. What is an MEU? What does a no vote mean? What does a yes vote mean? What are the ramifications of a no vote, a yes vote? And that's what we tried to do in those questions that we put out there as informational pages. We went through those things with a fine-tooth comb. I remember pulling out things like there was a line originally in there that said the first time around in 2018 it only failed by 3 votes. And I thought the word only in there was very biased because that showed that they were trying to get the thing to pass. So I made them take that word out, and eventually the whole line came out of there. Another line that was in there was that there's 136 MEUs currently in the state of Iowa, period. Nothing else that explained it. And I thought that was very disingenuous as well because I felt it made it sound like 136 other communities had gone down this same road we were trying to pursue, and that's not the case. Most of those came into existence in the early 1900s, and in fact, the last one that came into existence was in 1974. So we added that line in there to show that this is not an easy process to get to it. So I think we've done a great job at the information that we have provided as a city to be accurate and factual in what we put out there for the public to consume. As far as the Concentric feasibility study, I too looked at that disclaimer page that Steve talked about. And if you read further on in that, it said all statements, assumptions, opinions, positions, and conclusions set forth in this study are solely and exclusively provided by the attributable to Concentric and no other party whatsoever, which tells you they're putting assumptions and opinions into this study. If you read further into the study, some of the graphs and things they point out, one is a preliminary estimate. And it says at the very bottom of the page that this is a preliminary estimate that can only be refined after a complete system inventory is conducted. So that goes to show you they're just putting estimates in there, and that's the purpose of this vote we're having on March 4th, is so we don't have to have estimates, that we can actually get exact numbers if this thing has more yes votes than no votes coming out of it. I also don't think it's the place to put a large multi-million-dollar corporation's viewpoints onto a public web page like Decorah's website. Let's see, I think I had one other point that I wanted to make. I think that would lend to a bad precedent for putting corporate interests on a public website like ours. So I'm not in favor as well of not putting it on our website. So I'll be voting no.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I'm kind of a lot like Stephen Kersen on this. I mean, I do think that there are things that we need to look at, and I do believe that we are having conversations. We are having active conversations about this, whether or not Alliance study goes onto the city website doesn't necessarily mean we're not having conversations about it. People know about that study. People have access about that study. I had 3 flyers about that study come to my house for every legal voter in my household the other day. That information is getting out there. Whether or not we put it on our website doesn't necessarily mean that we're not letting people see it. It's out there. We've had people speak tonight that have read it. It's fully available. It is there for the public to easily access and consume. And just like I don't necessarily think it's appropriate for us to put that corporation onto the city website, just like I don't necessarily think it's appropriate to put Decorah Power, a local organization, wanting to have this MEU, their information on our website. I think to Steve's point, the information that we put out is, this is what happens if there's a yes vote, this is what happens if there's a no vote. I understand if you are pro-Alliant, anti-MEU, how you look at that and see that as bias. Just the same way as pro-MEU, anti-Alliant people look at theirs and say that is bias. It is, you're gonna have a view and you're gonna have an opinion on everybody's information. So with that, I don't necessarily think putting it on our website would be appropriate. Reach out to Alliant, get their stuff, get the packet, read it. I mean, as a council member, I'm doing my due diligence because I'm voting as well coming here in March. So, that information is out there.
Okay.
Then we should not have gone down this road of even putting anything on our website if we're not going to present both sides. And it's too late. We've already opened that gate up.
And the thing that I would like to say with that is it's the same thing, Alliance not putting our information on their website, right? So it's kind of one of those things, like they have a campaign that they're doing. If you get on Alliant.com, you're not going to find our information on theirs. I mean, you're just not.
I guess,
sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
And I just kind of wanted to.
I was just going to say, I'm not sure where this misconception came that the information that Decorah has on their website, the informational stuff, is pro-MEU. I think it was just there to answer questions that people might have that arise into the MEU. If you look at the task force material, they have pros and cons within that 36-page document that they came up with. So they didn't take a biased approach to it either. So I don't see where this bias that Decorah is putting on the information we put out there, there's a bias toward the MEU on there. I don't see that at all.
Okay. Actions requested.
I would move for approval.
I'll second.
Motion made by Chisel, seconded by Ms. Lineage.
Cody, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Oh, I just want to say
Yes,
thank you for standing up and making your case. From being on the other side, I know it's difficult to do sometimes, but I've also heard from plenty of constituents through email and other things that feel that this is a biased take on things. I happen to agree with it, and I think it's unfair to allow a corporation with so many resources to have that place on the website. And like Brent said, the information is out there. It's very easy to find, and I feel as though it doesn't necessarily need to be on the website. It's clearly biased towards Alliance. Their argument, it also is heavily based on assumptions, based on where inflation will be 5 years from now, which I think is misleading. And I'm all for people having the information that they need to make this vote, but I feel like the information is out there, and I feel like the information that's on the website is informative and non-biased, and I would vote no to have their alliance information on the website.
Have you received any correspondence on this, Travis? One.
Two
Okay,
that I
two.
believe councils received both correspondence as well. One was a forward through the city's website,
Okay,
and another being a direct communication.
okay.
And just for point of clarification, yeah, their numbers might be a little high. I don't know what their depreciation would be, but if we look at comparable communities, like Pella's electric utility is valued at 45.3, and that's their depreciated value on their 23-24 audit. And Waverly is 39.4 off their same audit. They do have 2 generation plants in Waverly, so that's not really a fair comparison, but you know, 45 million for a community that's very, very comparable to Decorah. So I think they came in with 60 million value.
86.
80, okay,
Was it
well,
concentrics?
their total cost in Pella is 74.5, so it's not too far off. And then you take the depreciation out of there, we're probably looking at a 45 million investment, and that takes a long time. I can't remember the name of the community up in Minnesota that sustainability group keeps referencing that went from Excel to an MEU, but going back and reading their minutes, they even came in and said, your rates will probably stay the same, if not go up, because we will have debt to retire. So, you know, these are things that are very important for people. No matter what we do, we're going to incur debt for the next steps. And if we don't follow it all the way through, we're going to lose a lot of money, potentially businesses. They're very nervous right now that they're going to lose their tier pricing. The folks with solar are very nervous that they're going to lose their net metering, because when you got that kind of debt, you're not going to be able to pay these people back to get their use of their solar. So these are things that need to be answered truthfully by the powers that be before we can make a required vote. But I mean, these numbers are pretty solid. So I still stand that we should put that out there and let the people decide what's right and what's wrong.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Jizzle,
Aye.
Misselinich,
Aye.
Olson,
No.
Zittergruen,
No.
Whittle,
No.
Parker.
No.
Motion failed. Discussion on out-of-state residency for police officers. Do you have that information, Travis?
Yes, so we're currently advertising for one vacancy that we're going to have in the near future within the police department. So the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy allows individuals that are outside the state of Iowa to be a certified Iowa police officer if their agency has that approved by ordinance. So I didn't realize that. I actually thought you had to be a resident of the state of Iowa. We do have an individual from Minnesota, not Rochester and Minneapolis that far up, but that has expressed interest in our opening. So if this is something that council would consider, staff would then have to draft an ordinance for the council to approve, allowing residency outside the state of Iowa for a police officer here.
Would there be a limitation on mileage from the community?
That certainly could be added. One thing that the industry, I guess for lack of a better term, is trending is away from residency requirements, largely because the candidate pool, quite frankly, we're not seeing the number of officers, or in larger communities, officers, firefighters, the testing pools. I remember myself testing for Cedar Rapids Fire many years ago, and many pounds ago, and being one of 200 applicants testing for the position. Now that number's in the double digits. So most communities are broadening that range. In addition to that, residency doesn't necessarily guarantee continuous ability to respond. You know, somebody might go out, have a drink or two on the weekend. You're not gonna expect them to respond after a drink or two, of course. Or they're doing a Costco run up in Rochester or something to that effect. So residency, that's a very common mindset, as at least it allows for a rapid response when it is all hands on deck. But in reality, we're very mobile people anymore, and we're not just sitting at home waiting for that phone to ring for us to respond.
Well, that's why I was wondering about a radius.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
Trish-
council could
Trish-
put that in the order.
Chief would be a lot better
Yeah, I
to
think,
speak to that.
I think you said too, though, Travis, when talking to you today, that if somebody chose to live, say up in Minnesota, say 20, 30 miles away, weather is not an excuse to be able to be used for not making it into work. You're in a public
Absolutely.
safety position, so you're required to be here when your shift starts, and that's your choice to have lived where you are, so.
Absolutely, that's my mentality, is
Right.
that it's a choice you actively
Right.
made. Weather, most weather situations can be planned for, and you need to plan appropriately.
Right.
Well, and we've already opened that door up with fire department. People that don't live in our fire district are members of our fire department. Carrie herself lives out of state.
Okay.
And we currently have somebody that lives in West Union working for the police department. but-
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I
Yeah,
mean,
but-
that's why I'm wondering.
Right.
That's why I'm wondering what kind of mileage
Right.
for an
Right.
all-hands emergency would be appropriate.
But, well, the Iowa Administrative Code allows for this primarily for our border communities, right? This is not something that Marshalltown had to think of or Des Moines has to think of, because they have an applicant pool right there, and they're 3 hours from the border for Iowa. For us, if I have an officer responding from West Union and is timely and better than clockwork, I mean, consistently here, regardless of weather, makes appropriate plans if weather's gonna be bad, it seems to me that we would allow that same response from Mabel or Canton. We've had some interest expressed from some folks that live up just across the border, whose families are already planted there. And I personally have had residency restrictions placed on me in 28 years. And every time my phone rang, I was not at home waiting to respond. One time I was an hour and 45 minutes away, and when the boss said come, I came. So our expectation is high that we would have a candidate pool of responsible people that will show up for the job when required. So, but the Iowa Administrative Code, Chapter 2.1, subsection 1, outlines why this is important for bordering communities in the state of Iowa.
Can you give me that number again,
Yeah,
please?
it's the Administrative Code 2.1, subsection 1.
I guess I think this is a really good idea. I don't think we should be penalized because we happen to be a county that borders a state, and just 2 counties away borders another state. If you lived in Black Hawk County or Polk County or something like that, they wouldn't have any problem with hiring somebody within the counties that surround them, and it wouldn't be a problem for them. So I think it's a good idea that it would open up the candidate pool to more people, which I know we're having troubles more and more trying to get people to go into this line of work, and the more pool that we can open up, the better.
Absolutely.
Travis, what's the protocol for putting that in place?
If general consensus of council is to trend that way, myself, John, we'd work on an ordinance that would be for future council consideration. The applicants that are interested, we would encourage them to apply and let them know we're moving through that process, no guarantees until it's adopted, and we should be able to adopt prior to testing.
I think I heard pretty much that the council was positive.
Mayor, actually, I do have something. Do you mind?
No.
No, thanks. I appreciate it. I think that I'm in favor of changing the ordinance to allow for out-of-state residents, but I'm curious, and John, this might be a question for you. if we had equally qualified applicants, one from Mabel and one from Freeport, could we discriminate on the basis of proximity if we do pass this ordinance? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I guess I have yet to see a situation where you have truly equal applicants, but I think it could be relevant.
This is a hypothetical, John. I thought lawyers love that stuff.
Yeah. I don't have to take the bar again, so I like to push back against hypotheticals.
There won't be a test of this
But
one.
no, Steve, to your point, I think you could. If they were truly equal, yeah, you have to have some deciding factor. Otherwise, it would be arbitrary coin flip to pick between those two. So why wouldn't that be relevant if the civil service and the police chief and the police department did think that was a relevant factor to consider?
Great. As someone, I think that it's in the city's interests to have police who not only are able to respond, but who also identify with our community, who love it. And so, for me, I think it is valuable when at least a large majority of our officer cohort is familiar with Decorah, and not just when they're working, whether that means they live in town or out of town. This is a place where they recreate, where they shop, maybe where their kids go to school. To the extent that's possible while still maintaining a full roster of officers, I think it's desirable. And that's all. I just wanted to make sure that staff heard that.
And I would agree that as a matter of practice for the police department, we try to create a lot of social engagement, even with just officers and their families, to make folks come together and just feel like they're part of something bigger. And that's been really helpful in that endeavor. So obviously, we'd love to have every officer live here, but I would hate to disqualify somebody who's, a great candidate but just happens to live 10 miles over a border.
Sounds like we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
Thanks.
can you work with that, John, on that, and then bring it back?
I say John and I will work on it, but John will draft it, he'll send it to me and say, what are your thoughts?
You'll say, yeah. that
I
looks
might
good.
catch one thing.
I want to thank Travis or Chief, who, I don't know who came up with the idea or how this came about, but appreciate the reaching out and looking for different ways to find a bigger pool, so thanks.
Okay. Discussion on the draft fiscal 26 budget. One of many. I should put.
Yeah, one of many public discussions and presentations of the budget, full of colorful graphs and pictures. But really only one minor change in the budget rendition and Dropbox from the last discussion. We did hear back from the implement for the parks mower that they're going to reduce our trade-in value of the mower we're going to trade in. So we did assign that to the sustainability funds. If you remember, that was split between sustainability and general fund. But in trying to maintain as much general fund balance as possible, we did attribute the extra $1,500, Mark? $1,500 in sustainability funds. Aside from that, I haven't heard much from council, so. Steps moving forward, if there's no changes or anything expressed, at the next council meeting, we'll have a resolution to set the property tax levy hearing. If council remembers, with House File 718, there are now going to be we had one last year. That was our first year of the two separate hearings. We'll hold the property tax levy hearing April 7th. Is that the date? April 7th, because there's 5 Mondays in March, so it kind of throws us off schedule a little bit. So that April 7th, we have to hold 2 meetings. They have to be 2 separate and distinct, so we will hold one at 5 o'clock. We will convene here. The mayor will open the property tax levy hearing. We'll hear anyone that comes and speaks about the budget. That meeting will end, that hearing will close, and then at the regular 5:45 council meeting, council can then adopt a resolution to set the budget hearing, which is the overall document.
And what did you say in March 17th? Is that just setting? You said we do something with the tax levy on March 17th?
March March 17th would only be our posting.
Is it just posting it?
You might be, so in the background information, March 17th is when that public hearing that we set for Hively, that March 17th is the next meeting for Hively Street improvements, when we'll hold that public hearing.
Okay, I thought you said there was something about the resolution for property tax levy would be on March 17th.
No, would be the next one in April.
April
April
7th.
7th.
Okay,
Yep.
sounds good. Okay. There's 2 vacancies on the Decorah Human Rights Commission. Do you want to make any comments on that?
Yeah, still trying to identify, there's been a little bit of turnover in Human Rights Commission. I've talked with John about the Human Rights Commission, what its primary function with the city of Decorah. They do some very good things, but they have struggled as of late to hold an actual meeting with quorum issues. I think they're less than 50, right around 50%, maybe less than 50% over at least the last 6 months. So going to have a discussion with them about the structure of human rights and what that looks like for the future.
Good.
I have somebody that may be interested. They had expressed interest a couple months ago. I know they've been out of town on vacation for a while. I will reach out to them again. Hopefully they'll
Great.
continue with their interest in the
Yep.
Okay.
So the chief function of human rights, just to make sure everyone is aware, the chief function is to investigate complaints of discrimination in the city of Decorah. So whether it's rental discrimination or employment discrimination, should the state receive a complaint on that, is our local Human Rights Commission that is supposed to be responsible for that investigation. So when I talk about the number of great things historic preservation has done, a lot of times they actually more align with the sustainability commissions, the social sustainable development. So we'll just have a conversation with the Human Rights Commission about their function, making sure they're prepared so that should a complaint ever get filed, they know what's expected of them.
Okay. I had an interesting interview with a gentleman from the Washington Post who actually came here to interview me as far as city government was concerned, but also as far as tariffs and rural, what effect the different tariffs that are coming out that can have on rural people or rural farmers and from the city. It was a very interesting interview. I really enjoyed it. I was a little amazed that he actually came all the way to Decorah. He was going on down to Fredericksburg to interview a farmer down there, and I also passed on Jules' farm operation to him as well, to be able to get any kind of information as far as what they see could affect their business. But I sort of wondered at first if it was real, but it was. I appreciated being able to do so. Anything else for the night? Motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
Thank you.